Let me try to use some visual aids. I have this great courses catalog that came the other day, and this is kind of similar to this catalog that came about a year ago. And I think I got this through being on a list from my Economist subscription that I can no longer afford to pay for due to life circumstances that I'm trying to dig my way out of. So it's like um, the art of public speaking, lessons from the greatest speeches in history. Being able to speak in public is essential to success. You can have the most logical argument possible, but in order to truly teach, inform, persuade, or defend, you need to present your ideas with conviction and confidence. Yet this is more easier said than done. ... All it takes is confidence, practice, and the knowledge of time-tested techniques and strategies used by history's greatest public speakers. Well, what I see today actually is no matter how eloquent a person is, it's easy to be just have one's words completely ignored and cast away as complete BS. And you see this like in these presidential debates where it goes so far as candidates calling each other phony, and it gets into these questions of like, what can you trust, what can you depend on, and how can you assess risk and trade-off. And in one sense, life is like total chaos, or you can look at life as total chaos, which is an aspect of my life at work. But there's also a lot of very straightforward, clear-cut facts. Planet Earth, progression of history, events referenced in Billy Joel's song "We Didn't Start the Fire," issues expressed by Black Eyed Peas song "Where Is the Love," and this question of truth, which relates to the question of judgment and decision making. So how do things happen? How are judgments and decisions done? And how does cause and effect work through history? And how does this relate to hypothetical conceptions of God, which references back to "It's All About the Benjamins" from Puff Daddy and the Family's album No Way Out. And that goes back to this belly of the whale problem, where, to reference the hero's journey conflict or concept or monomyth concept, on which most movies are built, or a lot of movies, it's like there's a whole aspect of that with the financial system and like needing to make money, and then what I have come to call a run on my time. And so basically, I'm trying to figure out, why do I have a run on my time, and all these other people are unemployed, and I'm like in a rather dire situation in certain respects, even though I've learned how to cope with it and deal with it, and I'm building it into a story and a production and like a sort of method of calculating, mental calculation and association between all kinds of different ideas and songs and concepts and points in history, points in my life, events going on in different parts of the world. And I'm trying to break it down into this process where, in terms of decisions and the flow of history, it's like what leads to what. And it also gets into this whole "the world is a stage" thing that Shakespeare talked about in this play As You Like It. So again, it's like I can iterate through and make all these different connections. But part of the question ties into how much time I spend. I mean, I've been engaged in this workflow process of creating these videos, but it's like, what am I going to actually publish? What are people actually going to watch? And then it gets into how to promote whatever I put online, or who's going to find it, and how does this tie into like meetings with people, arranging my schedule, which is already overloaded with this run on my time. And so it's like I find myself feeling like, I mean, despite being destitute in certain respects, I feel similar to somebody who really has like an overloaded schedule and a really complex life. And yet, in certain respects, my life is extremely simple. But it's like there's still there are challenges posed by that. And this is a song, this is an issue or situation referenced by the song Mr. Wendell by Arrested Development, which talks about a man who uh, basically lives in the street and has no name, but he sees things that other people don't see about the nature of the world and problems. And this goes back to like what Black Eyed Peas basically get at in the song "Where Is the Love." This connects up to this question of the root song "The Fire," which featuring John Legend, which correlates with uh, this song "Power" by wow, tip of the tongue. Anyway, that song references a bunch of key points. One reference is Norman Mailer, who's related to this whole um, sort of new journalism type of genre, along with other people like Hunter S. Thompson. Um, I'm interested in kind of like working or finding myself working on that angle where I'm trying to document and be a sort of journalist, sort of like some ways Morgan Spurlock, but I'm also trying to earn a living and kind of sort out this big picture view of things and act as a sort of calculating prodigy similar to Rudiger Gamm, who has who developed the ability to do very complex calculations in his head. And over a decade ago, I read an article about him, and I was interested in how to go about doing that. But my interest has never really been in just numbers, but in basically knowledge in general, including just like learning and understanding the world and everything. So, and also I've been interested in translating that into writing for television, movies, now YouTube or whatever. But it gets into this whole thing where there's this sort of relationship between real life and writing, and it's like people do, in a certain sense, write their life story each day, even though many elements of that whole story are not one that those that one chose. There's still you can still look at it in this one day at a time thing, which ties into this 12-step approach. Which in terms of like this story of my life, my dad referenced in an email he sent to me on September 26th of 2011. So, and that's an element, for example, that I've included in a number of layouts that I've done that kind of aggregate these different points of knowledge that I've now come to sort of integrate together mentally and get to the point of being able to communicate verbally about them and kind of explain how they connect together. And I plan to go back to the kind of world of imaging and kind of see how I can map out these connections in a more effective way than I've done, which often has been just with on paper as well as layouts. In sort of pages and pages of sketchbooks that look like the rantings of an insane person, but they're part of a creative process and a knowledge integration process that I've engaged in, along with the eventual layouts that I came to do based on arranging books and photographing them to kind of express some of the things I was thinking about, including books on decision making, psychology, and all these different topics. So, now, okay, so to go back to the song Power, and so there's this idea of the progression of history.